probably going to share a slightly different screen with you guys. And we're off and running. Okay. So this is Zoom with Google Tools, and my thought process as I was putting this all together was to try and think about what would we be doing or using live. So this would be mostly synchronous instruction. You'll have the slide deck, and we also have, just simply because we have so many of you with us today, we have a Q&A document. So if at any time you have a question, go ahead and throw it in the chat. Those of you that are watching us on YouTube Live, you can throw it in the chat too. But I think what we'll do, if we can't answer right away, we're going to kind of migrate it over into our Google Doc Q&A and answer it after the fact, because this will be kind of a fast-paced half hour. And like I said, we are giving you access to the slide deck. And if I go too fast over anything, please know you can obviously watch the playback of the video. I will probably have that up and ready on YouTube by this evening. So you can watch this at any time at that point. All right, so my name is Nicole Carter. I'm a part of the digital curriculum crew. Prior to my job here in Beaverton, I was a language arts teacher for 12 years and used a lot of technology even 8 years ago. And that has just kind of translated into how I'm helping here within the Beaverton School District. So you can contact me at any time. Just know that my thought process has been and always will be to provide as many resources for you guys as the teachers, but I'm constantly kind of thinking in mind, what is the student's experience too, especially as I build content on the different platforms. We were talking about best practices within CDL over our PD on the Patio series. I don't know if any of you were able to watch any of those videos or do those live with us. These are the same buckets that we were kind of using during that time frame. So I think that this fits within the category of how are we connecting, how are we engaging our students, maybe even how we're teaching some of the content. And then more importantly, how we're kind of offering abilities for our students to collaborate with one another. I think keeping in mind too that we as teachers are always thinking behavior management, how do I know what they're doing, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to show you some of those pieces as we go today too. And I think the other piece also is just remembering that we need to connect with our students. Before any of the content comes through, we have to build those relationships. So is there a way for us to create a humanized experience where the kids are having fun, they're connecting, they're collaborating, and then we get to the content, right? And as always this year, we are thinking foremost about culturally responsive practices and equity in everything that we do. And when those things come up, I will make sure to share them with you guys. So as we started, I had music going in the waiting room. And I was using a specific curated Spotify playlist called Sunny Day. However, I really like the idea of potentially allowing students, and this was something I did in my classroom when I would use background music while students were writing or doing some sort of activity. I would use a playlist that they helped me curate. And there's something to be said about what happens when students hear a song that they recognize with, and then they make that connection in the classroom. So one way to do that is just, I have a Google form that allows students to just quickly, it is quite frankly just a simple Google slide that will allow you guys to collect songs that students are interested in. It's not that revolutionary, but what is kind of interesting when you start looking at the use of music within Zoom, one thing that is overlooked often is you need to check the box that says share audio computer. I know I've talked to a couple of teacher friends that have started already in California and Texas, and some of their students will come back and say that the audio can be a bit scratchy or it glitches and they don't like listening to it. So there's a couple of things to keep in mind. Whenever the Zoom videos are on, that's pulling from your bandwidth. So unless I'm specifically asking a student to turn their video on for a specific task, which will happen in just a minute, I would suggest always defaulting to leaving your video off. It's just pulling bandwidth and you don't necessarily need it unless it's for a specific thing. So if students are saying, I'm having issues, you're cutting out, the sound isn't good, that's the first thing to mention. The second thing is to make sure that you do check that tiny little box when you go to share your screen and say share computer audio. If you are planning on doing a Zoom session where you are also sharing a video, there's a tiny little box right next to it that says share or compress audio for video clip or something. Anyways, check both of those boxes. That's going to give you a better audio experience for your audience, aka your students. Okay, and then the other thing that I like using, so if you do not have your participants window open and your chat window open in Zoom, go ahead and open those up for me really quickly, because I'm going to ask for you to give me some nonverbal feedback. So the first one is, after hearing the waiting room music and me kind of talking about utilizing the music in your waiting room and how easy and simple it is, how many of you might potentially use waiting room and music? Can you give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or even a yes or a no in your nonverbal participations? So again, in order to access the nonverbal feedback, you have to open up your participants window. Those of you watching us in the YouTube stream, I'm sorry, you can't necessarily use that feature with us. It's those that are in the Zoom room with us. Okay, so I see a lot of you answering yes in the chat. Fantastic. Can you give me a shot at trying to locate those nonverbal participation, yes or no, or a thumbs up and a thumbs down? So the yes and no should be fairly easy to see. And at this point, I'm seeing about 75 of you giving me that answer. To get the thumbs up or thumbs down, you actually have to click on the more button, the little jelly beans in the corner. And honestly, on my view, I know you can't necessarily see this, but on my view, I actually am getting a tally to show me how many of you have participated. So this is just another option beyond, put it in the chat, friends, that you can actually turn this on. Now, if you do not have, if you've never seen these before, you have to go into your settings and actually toggle it on, turn the nonverbal feedback on in your settings. It's about halfway down in your, once you log into zoom.us, it's halfway down in the settings section, and it's just called nonverbal feedback. And again, you should be able to see that by clicking open the participants category. It's not attached to your chat window. It's actually a part of your participation window. Okay. So I'm going to kind of keep going. And just another thought process, not really a Google product, but another piece of your Zoom. Okay, so Mentormeter is actually a, let's see here. I'm going to open this up so you can see it on my window. Mentormeter is a website. Now, Kristen's a part of the team here helping me man the chat, and she is a person that is always constantly thinking about whether or not we have permission from Mentormeter. So at this point in time, I don't think that they've signed our student data privacy. However, to be a student and participate in a Mentormeter, you do not have to create an account. As you saw, all you did was type an answer to the question. When I build it in Mentormeter, I do have to create an account, but I just sign in with my work Google email. And you build it kind of like a slide deck and just type in your question. And then when you go to share it, you hit the share button, and the voting link is what you would give to students in your chat window. And it's really that simple. Usually when I use Mentormeter, it's just one simple question, one slide. I don't do multiple slides. And then to share the live view to the students, I would just hit on present sharing and copy this link and open that in the other window. So this comes back to the fun waiting room. It automatically goes to a large screen view, which I don't necessarily like. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller because I need to be able to navigate. But there you go. That's what you guys were looking at on your end. Super easy and simple. So that's Mentormeter. I'm not going to take much more time on this, but I did also in the slide deck give you a video where another teacher already thought about 5 different ways to use Mentormeter to quickly engage your students. Okay, Here is another example. This is using a Google slide deck. You can make a copy of this. It is linked in the slide deck for you. In the speaker's notes, I think is how we did that. Yes, okay. And then what I'm gonna do real quickly is open this up in my window. And if you do not have your video on, we'll keep audio off, so mute yourself if you can. But audio or your video should be on. Okay, so here's how we play this game. All you're going to do is give me a reaction in your video, a thumbs up or a thumbs down as we go through. And I'm only going to do a few slides here. Okay, so if you are, or would you rather do a beach day or a camp out? Thumbs up or thumbs down? And I am looking at my Brady Bunch screen. Oh, it's a peace sign, my bad. Peace sign or a thumbs up. Okay, keep going. Do you like to read mysteries or fantasies? Thumbs up or a peace sign? So again, these are simple, pre-made. You can change your questions at any time. Make a copy of this slide deck, and this would be a nice little opener. Okay. Continuing on with another example. This is one I love. Now, when you take a look at this one, it does look a little bit more elementary based, but I definitely think you can easily swap out any of the components here to make it look maybe a little bit more secondary. For the majority of the people joining us today, it's elementary staff, so I feel like this fits for you. But I love this example. This is a roll of story. And the way that I experience this or think about using this is literally live, where I would have students probably open. And again, I'm going to, there is a slide deck that goes with this. It is again also linked in the speaker's notes for you. I think actually the image is the link. So you could potentially, and we're going to model this at the end of today's session, where we're going to go into breakout rooms and see how you could in fact use a slide deck in this manner. But what you would do is you would ask the students to go ahead and jump into a slide deck. They could either force a copy, or you could create multiple slides that are numbered or they put their name on it, and then they fill it out. I would envision that I would set up a timer for 10 minutes and have them roll a dice and start writing on their character while I'm playing like some fun background mood music. As I've said before, I really like to use music. So I'd probably find, I don't know, like the Lord of the Rings soundtrack and play that in the background, since this seems to be a little bit more of a fantasy story. So I'd play that music, I'd set my 10-minute timer, they'd roll their dice, they'd start writing. And it's just, again, another quick and easy way to kind of get a little bit of a jump start into writing or something. And again, you could pre-do any of these, change out the images, just make a copy, and you're good to go. Okay, another kind of community builder is this virtual locker and virtual cubby. I've also seen examples where people have done like mood boards or dream boards, whatever you would want to call it with your students, but giving them access to add some images and pictures and things that represent them, and then sharing those back out to the class. Another example, and I wish I would have included this, but my friend in California just did this yesterday. No, Monday, because it was Mind Mondays or something. I forget how she phrased it, but it's something to do with Mondays, where the kids come up with a positive affirmation for the week. So they came up with it. She worked through like how to come up with their affirmation, and then they wrote it on a piece of paper, and then they all shared the piece of paper in their Zoom window. I loved it. I told her, oh my gosh, this is such a great idea. So any way that we're allowing students to kind of manipulate images, write out affirmations, share back with the class. I was talking with a coworker of mine, and I have she's going to be in 7th grade this year. And I think that there is something to be said about holding off on the content, building community, building collaboration in. My coworker said that, you know, her son would get excited when he saw someone's name come up on a Kahoot quiz, like just in the leaderboard, because that was really the only interaction he had with any of his students, if any of his peers. And that is something we want to kind of avoid. So if there's any way that we can pull them in, get them to share a little bit about themselves, get excited about sharing about themselves, I think this is a good example. So for this, they would just pull in different images and decorate their locker, decorate their cubby. Okay, so another one that I think is very helpful while we're doing a live lesson is sorting activities. So in these examples on the screen, we've got, you know, just a short jumble, letter jumble that you could sort and create words. For secondary or upper elementary, we love the idea of doing prefixes, Latin prefixes. Kristen and I were talking about this earlier today. We also were saying, well, what about if you did magnetic poetry? Those would be great. And these are just slide decks. And so I wanted to show.
Nicole, can I pause you real quick? Can you increase your screen size there? I know you're toggling between multiple things, but just so that our friends can see it a little bit better.
Well, here's what we'll do. Is this one better? It's going to go full
a little
screen.
Bit better. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm seeing nods. You guys could practice your nonverbals and thumbs up.
Okay. So, yeah, I am going, sorry friends, I am going between a ton of different screens. So give me just a minute, but that's helpful. Okay, so I wanted to actually open up this slide deck that I gave you an example of, because I just think this is a wonderful, I'm going to show you actually two things, and this is kind of harder for me to show you. So I'm going to do it, but then I'm going to ask that you go into Zoom, launch a Zoom room later tonight and practice it yourself. But one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to launch the annotation features on my end. And I am going to, this reminds me of the good old fashioned smart boards. I was telling Kristen, I was like, do you remember when you used to draw? Do you remember when you used to do this where you would draw and create things to block it out so that kids would only focus on the area you wanted them to focus on? Okay, so what I just did was drew this big old block. I could do this in the editor tools on the slides, but instead I'm using the annotation feature. So there's a couple of different ways to do it. So if we were going to spell cat, then again, and this could be something too that your students do and not you if you gave it to them. And so, you know, it's just a drag and drop. They're individual. So this is something Kristen made sure that I told you. There is a background image that doesn't move. It's built into the slide. And then all these other pieces are on top of it and draggable, sortable, movable. So if I come back into, you know, saying, okay, kids, we're going to do this next activity, then we'll say, what is our rhyming? And just to point this out, you've got, there we go. You've got these things to move. And then this activity is just highlight. Let's highlight where cat is in our sentences. So this, again, is something that either the students could do in their own slide, or you can do live while they're working with you. Okay. So going back. And then we didn't want to get too deep into this because we figured it's like, we are going to do a session on Thursday or Friday. Kristen, remind me, we're going to do a full session just on Jamboard. If you haven't played around with Jamboard, Thursday. It's a part of, thank you. It's on Thursday. It's a part of the Google Suite Deck. It is a good replacer of Padlet because Padlet only allows you to make 3 unless you pay for it, right? So this is a very similar kind of product, but it's part of Google. And so here are some examples that we've created. Again, well, I didn't create, I shouldn't say that, I didn't create it, but you have access to it. So sorting and lots of different options. Again, there's also primary versions, and Jamboard is going to happen on Thursday. So we'll go more into Jamboard. I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but it's another option in terms of using live things. Okay. So this is the part where things get a little bit hectic because we have such a large group. So we are going to talk a little bit about breakout rooms, and then we're going to try it. and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so for breakout rooms, you do have to make sure you turn on breakout rooms in your settings, and then you do have quite a few different controls to work with. Your breakout rooms stay created for the entire Zoom session as it is on. And the only way you spice things up and change those Zoom rooms, breakout rooms, is if you hit that recreate button, which you can do at any time. Most of the time though, when we have kids go into breakout rooms, we want them to maintain that collaboration space the whole time. You can set lots of different controls about when the breakout rooms will close and how long the countdown is. It automatically defaults to 60 seconds, which sometimes when you're having a really good discussion is not long enough. And then on my end as the host, sometimes 60 seconds is too long. So keep that in mind. Trying to get rid of this. Okay, there we go. And then you also can potentially create breakout rooms ahead of time. I'm still kind of trying to figure out how that might work as it's set up in our system, because you do have to have like the emails of students, which could be kind of difficult unless you collect those at some point and you have like a nice spreadsheet, maybe you could collect them via a Google form. And then you have a nice spreadsheet that you can just copy and paste or upload as a CSV file. There we go. So you can create breakout rooms ahead of time. Some things to think about in a breakout room, however, is that, and I think, let me get there in just a minute. Is this working? Yes, okay. So when we talk about comfort levels, how are students feeling with nonverbal participation? How are they feeling with having the camera on? How are they feeling with doing breakout rooms? I think having some ideas for that are going to be good. Kristen, I'm going to give that to you so you can add it. It's in the chat. So I think kind of keeping those in mind might be good. This is the pre-creation, pre-assign of breakout rooms. So if you wanted to do like a small group breakout room, you could ahead of time, but again, you're going to have their specific emails to be able to do it. We're going to try a breakout room. Right now we have 240 people or so, and then we also have people watching on the live YouTube stream, so we'll see how this goes. What we're going to do is use a simple Google slide. It's very simple, there's not a lot on there, but what we're going to do is have you in your breakout rooms go to a specific slide deck. So if you're in breakout room 1, you're going to be in slide deck 1 on breakout room slide 1. Is that how we're doing it? Kristen, remind me. Now that I'm fresh and having everybody try it.
Yes. Yeah. So if you're breakout room 1, you're going to room 1.
Yes.
It gets trickier after that.
It does get, yes. Okay. And we do have a slide that shows us. Okay. So what I'm going to do really quickly is create the breakout rooms. We actually are going to have 30 breakout rooms. We found out today you can have up to 50 breakout rooms before you break Zoom. So we're going to create some breakout rooms, and then we're going to send you into those breakout rooms, and I'm going to ask that you go ahead and keep your videos off. It really won't matter, especially when students are doing this, because they would have to toggle between a couple of different windows. The Zoom will stay on in the background, but they're going to actually be in the Google slide deck instead. And this will provide them a way to keep their mics on and talk to one another and fill out the slide deck. And then on your end, you can actually live see as they're populating the slide deck, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like in just a minute. So here's how this is going to work. We're going to have breakout rooms 1 through 7 go into slide deck 1. We're hitting some issues here because with our capacity, you can only have 100 people editing a Google Doc at one time. And so we had to kind of come up with a way to make it work with such a large audience today. Just know that this is so much simpler when you have only one small class, okay? So when you have one small class and it's about 30 kids, you just use one slide deck, you break them out into breakout rooms, but we have more people. So if you're in breakout rooms 1 through 7, you're gonna be in slide deck 1. If you're in breakout rooms 8 through 15, you're in slide deck 2. If you're in breakout rooms 16 through 22, you're on slide deck 3, and we're going to put those in the chat so you have access to it. And Kristen, can you answer anyone's questions while I get those breakout rooms
Yes,
going?
ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to do 30 breakout rooms. And I am opening all of those rooms and sending you guys. I can turn it on and off when I hit this security button here. So by having it checked off, that means like currently right now, participants are allowed to share screen. They're allowed to chat. They're allowed to rename themselves, but I can click that security button at any time and turn it back off or on. Okay. Now, from my perspective, I'm going to go back to this screen. From my perspective, while you guys are working in those slide decks, this was trending on Twitter last week, where people were like, this is great. How did you do that? And so I think people don't know that down at the bottom, your Google Slides defaults to this film strip view. But when you toggle it over to grid view, you get a larger thumbnail and you can literally see every single person that's on the specific slide, and you can see the live updates as it's happening. So that feature where you guys said you saw my message go out to all, I did a better job of modeling this in a different section. I think I was really distracted trying to help people that didn't get into breakout rooms. I would use that feature where you broadcast to all by saying, great job, breakout room 4. Thanks for adding to the slide deck, and do those kinds of quick compliments. You can't necessarily broadcast straight into a specific breakout room. You can only broadcast to all. But you can definitely jump in, and that's the other added benefit from either having the video off or having them do an activity like this where they are in a slide deck and working, is that you could jump in and not say anything. You could jump into their breakout room and just listen. What are they saying? What are they doing? How are they talking? How are they collaborating? And then jump back out, and they're none the wiser because they're in the slide deck. They're not necessarily watching on their Zoom. So that's another added benefit. So all you'd have to do there is create that slide deck, share it with the students, and then on your end, just toggle from the film strip view to the gallery view, or grid view, I think is actually what it's called. And then you can see in a larger thumbnail everything that they're doing. Okay, that wraps up today's session. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and send me an email. Thanks.